All right. I did it. I still have the epilogues left, but I did it. I did chapter 24. Here are my thoughts just immediately after. Like, I put it down, and then within a couple minutes, I'm on here. I have some thoughts. Now, looking at this series behind me, what a ride. What a ride. I would say that I didn't really start to get low notes maybe until a little bit in Midnight Tides when I got a little bit, it seemed so obvious that Lether was like a critique on capitalism and on like empires and colonialism or whatever, where it was like bringing me a little bit out of it, where I started to think about maybe Steven Erickson's political views and things more than the story itself. And then that little seed just kind of grew and grew a little bit more uh, throughout. And again, it reared its head for me in the Bone Hunters. But generally, up until Toll the Hounds, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Didn't love these last two books, but I really liked the last. Really, I actually like the last 2/3 of the very last chapter of the Crippled God. I mean, there were some things still where I was more thinking about Steven Erickson's like philosophical things, which often I don't, I don't really jive with them. Like there was one part where I think it was Bannister he said we should all live a life of hobbies, doing only what gives us pleasure, doing only what rewards us in secret, private ways. And I thought, oh man. And then Fiddler says wise words, and I was like, no, those aren't wise words. That is anyway. I can go way into why that anyway. But then you get amazing things like when we are better people, we make better gods. And then it's like, wow, that is something where anyone could take that and find that you can find something positive out of that. And that's where I love some of what Steven Erickson puts forward. I mean, obviously some of what he puts out, like I just it just doesn't resonate, because in some ways I just disagree. But with some things like that, it's like amazing, amazing. So here are some quick things that really, really hit home. And I'll go into more detail once sort of the dust settles, and I still have the epigraphs or the epilogues to do. But I just wanted to give this immediate stuff. Now, Rip Mappo, who I love, and I thought he died. It's interesting that he died in an unwitnessed way, considering that is such a theme in this last part here. And Tavor kind of represents this for us. He kind of represents all the everyman soldiers who have been forgotten, or not even all soldiers. Like, think of all the families and think of all the people who have given to their communities and done all these noble things that we don't know about. And Tavor represents that most specifically. She has this Odotarl thing. Like, she is like this haze on, not haze, but like, she just, there's so much of that. When I went to London to the British Museum, they have just stuff from like everywhere, just, and I would look at some of the stuff carved from ancient Egypt and Greece and stuff, and I would think, how interesting to think that someone did this. Like someone actually did this, and we will never know their name. We will know the great king and stuff or whatever, and maybe not even that, because we know that sometimes it would be like washed off and then like a new name would be there. But very, very cool how it was kind of how it managed to come about a few different ways, and Tavor represents that in an awesome way. Mappo, I'll get back to Mappo because I freaking love the last scene with Ikariam. It's amazing. Fiddler and the Crippled God, like I kind of knew this sort of thing was coming. You could kind of read the tea leaves, I guess, and he was going to wake up and kind of have a different, be kind of shocked at what people are doing on his behalf or whatever. Fiddler's amazing too. Fiddler represents Tavor and Fiddler are so important here, but Fiddler also represents being totally unselfish. Which why when I saw that other thing, like life is about hobbies and doing things for your own pleasure, and it's like, well, Fiddler doesn't do that, at least the way I interpret that. Like he lives to serve. And, I get my most joy sometimes when I've sought my most pleasure and stuff, like do things that are, hobbies and pleasure and live for me. And that's the culture. As people do that, so often they go down these roads where they're actually doing things that are counter to feeling valuable and feeling like you're worthwhile, and people get depressed. And it's like there's something to becoming happy by serving. And obviously Fiddler has like a heavy life, and as he's serving, like he has a terrible life in so many ways, but he does the right thing. And so like Tavor and Fiddler, amazing what we got out of those two by the end. And she gives an amazing speech where she like recognizes this in these, she kind of calls this out, like a lot of people, no one's going to remember our names, but it doesn't, we are going to be unwitnessed, but it doesn't mean that you don't matter to me and we don't matter to each other, and we are going to go do this. What they are going to do is necessary. The Condrel tier got Gull, the coolest, and his wife, the coolest. Hedge's Dud Cusser made me laugh, like he's been holding that for so long. Crippled God, he's the one that's going to write the Book of the Fallen. Like he will remember, which I thought that was something I didn't expect. Quickben and Callum to the rescues, awesome. Carabas versus Corlat, Namander, Skintick, Desra, and Solana was awesome. Then the whole thing with Haborik and Kroll and the Crippled God and Male, like that was a confusing scene. Some of this stuff, I'm just excited now I can dip into some of these other videos and things and see other people's takes on them, and maybe some of the details connecting, like really why Haborik was in the perfect position for that moment, which some of it was making sense, but some of the very specific details are ones that are kind of lost to me still. Hedge staying a little bit longer is awesome, and Whiskey Jack and all of them giving Trotz giving Fiddler a new fiddle that they made for him, which is so amazing because like think of all that Fiddler has done for not even just for other people. He was like the heart of the Bridge Burners in some ways, even though Whiskey Jack is like he's the leader, but Fiddler is just amazing, and they made that for him. I was just super touched by that. Thought that was amazing. Also, super touched by. I'm so relieved that we get a Whiskey Jack Corlat sort of thing where he's going to move on and we'll have to wait. But Corlat lives for a long time, and but he's going to wait. And I thought that was just the best way to end that. So I'm very happy that about that. Happy that Talk finally is like a bridge burner, like he wanted to be. And then we get this last thing with Ublala and Ikariam. So Ublala is going to be like the new Mappo for Ikariam. And I loved when Ikariam says he died defending me, but I never knew who he was. And I thought, like, I almost teared up for that moment. So Steven Erikson almost got me for the very last scene of the last chapter, not including the epigraphs, which I'm so excited to still get to. But I thought that was so fitting for good old Mappo. Because of course we want this great connection thing. But the reason I love Toll the Hounds is there were so many things where people were just doing the right thing, regardless of what happened. I mean, not everyone was, but regardless of maybe what happened. And Mappo fought for Ikariam, and because he's his friend. And I thought it's such a sweet thing that also goes into this thing about Tavor being unwitnessed and best possible sort of tragic ending for Mappo, but so fitting and beautiful. Died unwitnessed for a friend that won't really remember him. But then he says, friend, I've remembered something. So, I mean, was that the very last thing, maybe? Yeah, friend, I've remembered something. And I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome because I love Mappo, and I know maybe we were hoping for something a little grander with like them becoming best friends forever. But I love what Mappo did, and it took him all this time to get back for that little moment. And I think it's fitting, and I think it's amazing. I wonder if other people feel the same way. I had some other stuff. Like I have some differences of opinion for some of the details where it feels like some of Steven Erikson's like philosophical and like a lot of his critiques at times would feel like totally. It seemed like there was like a through line of pessimism about the idea of faith, and totally fine to explore, and totally, something that is understandable to explore when it has to do with like, he would tackle gods as flawed beings, and in this certainly like really interesting manipulation by divine beings is something that absence of divine justice, they would kind of hold back or even do horrible things, have the actually one of the big things is kind of their faith as a tool for control. And some of Steven Erikson's what seems to be like big time pessimism for that, at least how I understood it, like he, questioning blind faith and stuff like that. It seemed like it was a little bit heavy-handed on the one side, with his idea of that, even though, I don't know where he lies on all that, but it felt a little bit this way, and not a lot of like, it was always like these different religious groups coming in and then eventually like making their followers do the worst things ever, right? Maybe, yeah. And I just thought, oh, well, that's kind of unfortunate that it's just always that way when, for a lot of people, faith is something that grounds them, and it's like a structure, and it's not that. But there's some great things that were said, like in Dead House Gates, history. What was it that was even said? Probably wouldn't even be able to look it up. It's like the lessons of history is what that we never learn. And I thought, amazing. That's totally true. Um, and a big theme in this that really hit home several times. I mean, I don't think we needed 10 books of this. I mean, we got it through Ikovian in book 3, especially. This idea of having compassion for someone, even if you don't know them, or they don't know you, but it's not even totally compassion, but I mean, I guess so, but uh, you know what I mean. I mean, right? You know what I mean. And we found that a lot. I think that's fantastic. I think that a lot of what people do on a day to day, be it parents or great teachers or good, uh, uh, neighbors or bosses or strangers or coworkers, people that are just, I think a lot of people know how to take that on by serving even without the need for like acclaim about it. And that's where I think I would, some of Steven Erickson's pessimism towards like following an established, like a priest or something I agree with as well. I think a lot of terrible has happened when people will like serve for their own benefit. Like, look what I've done. Look how virtuous I am, and like I'm up here, and I will hand out goodies and things. But I do agree with what he said, and I think we would come to terms where it's like when we are better people, we make better gods. And I think that's fantastic. And I think that wherever people would lie, and this isn't a theological thing, but like whether religious or not religious or wherever, I think people can resonate with that idea of serving, which is why I didn't quite understand that flipping like we should live a life of hobbies, only doing what gives us pleasure. I was like, what? That seems self-centered. Anyway, I will have lots more to say. I'm going to rank these. My initial ranking. I'm going to eventually go through. Like, I'm going to look at all the characters, and see if I can come down to top 25 or so, something like that. A lot of dust is going to settle, so I'm going to have time to like breathe now and go back with just looking for stuff that I'm just excited. I'm happy with the ending. I'm happy with the last 60 pages, even though if the last 2 books are one book, oh man, I did not love the last 2 books as a whole, but I did like the last 60 or so pages, which made it worth it, I think, still. But, I mean, that's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask. Really liked what we eventually got with the end with the bridge burners, even though I had my gripes that they weren't as central for books 3 to 10 or 4 to 10. Happy with the ending. I know I was salty, and some of that still kind of stands, but positive with the ending. And think that that Steven did right by more people than I expected. Mostly because, if it's going to be unwitnessed and stuff as a final kind of theme in there, I think it's important that we don't necessarily tie everyone up because, Apsalar and Cutter are still out there doing stuff. We don't know what Solara's, they're just like, it's I don't know. Great. So I don't know. I don't know how I totally sit yet with the whole ending. I didn't think it's as amazing as a lot of people probably do. Like, Crippled God is in the lower 5. Dust of Dreams is like probably the bottom for me. And then the Crippled God is down there as well for me. Mostly because a lot of the ending, I got some of those same feelings that I got in the last 70 or so pages of the ending. I already got those things. I already felt that with the Kovian and some of these other things going on. Loved the thing with Karsa and Manag. I know people have mentioned that. I haven't mentioned that. Some of these scenes, like, I'll just read through them and I would forget to, like... Anyway, I would forget to call on that, but I thought that was a beautiful scene as well. So... I'll do one more thing. I'll read through the epilogues tonight, and we did it. We got through. So, just thinking if there's anything else. I did write some notes here. Glad Haborik was at the end here. Kind of disappointed we didn't get more. I mean, disappointed we didn't get a whole bunch of people. Like Kruppa, I thought for sure's got to have like the last word, but it's fine. I did like Ikarium maybe remembering Mappo. I think that's awesome. So, talk to you soon.